Hey, ladies and gentlemen. So we are going to be working on the United States Country Report for Unit 3, Political Patterns and Processes today. As usual, I'm not really going to go over a whole bunch here on these multiple choice questions because they're pretty easy to find. You just need to go to the section that they should be in and read that section. For example, these first two questions: what continent is the United States in? And what is the capital city of the United States? That's found right here in this first paragraph. Government is going to be found in the government section. Population is going to be found on the population chart. Population makeup is going to be found in the population pyramid. This one, you're going to go back to the population chart. This is also population chart. This is going to be found in the religion section. This is going to be found in the language section, and so on and so forth. So, like I said, these are pretty easy. What is the currency of the United States? Well, you live in the United States, so you should know that one. But those are pretty easy. So we're going to come down to the section where you actually have to write out some stuff, right? So a little bit about the climate of the United States. All right. So again, you live here. This should be fairly easy, but if you're not able to tell me about the climate based off of what you know, you can always come down to this climate section. All right. So, it says the overall climate in the United States is temperate with notable exceptions. Alaska has an Arctic tundra climate, while Hawaii and South Florida have a tropical climate. So that would be kind of all you would need to have there, right? I didn't say tell me everything about the climate. I just said tell me some stuff about the climate. So give me a few items and you're good to go. What sort of ecosystems can be found? So you're going to want to look through the environmental issues. They'll talk about it, and resources and probably climate. And that'll give you a whole bunch of different ecosystems. But just some ideas, right? We have mountains, we have woods, we have plains, we have deserts, right? We have swamps. Those are all different types of ecosystems that we have here in the United States that you could put down. How are people using the land or depending on the environment? So again, environmental issues, a lot of times we'll give you some of that information. And then agriculture and resources are going to be your best friends for this one, right? So it's resources, and then agriculture and environmental issues. That's where you're going to find information about what we in the United States are doing, using our land or depending on our environment for. But natural resources, that's going to be in the same section here on the resources part. How do people change the land? Some of that information will be in the resources, some of it will be in the agriculture, and some of it will be in the environmental issues, right? Because we harvest resources, we use the land for food, and then we also cause environmental issues because of how we live, and that's all different ways that we have changed the land in the United States. How have human activities affected the United States? This question is very similar to this one. I'm actually not certain why they're both in here, but they are. Whenever I do the next unit, I'll make sure that we don't have a question that's so similar. So this one, I would focus specifically on the land, I guess. So talk about how they cultivated the land, how they changed the land, built cities and things like that. And then this one, I would focus more on the environmental issues, right? So I'll probably change this to be a question about environmental issues whenever I change it. But yeah, so this one's going to be more like the physical changes that we made, where we cut down trees and we, built houses and we moved dirt and we built roads and things like that. And then this one's going to be more like, the pollution where we're having wildfires and things of that nature. Now, see this question, a lot of people get confused. They see these first two, and because they're so similar, they think this is the same question. But this question deals with kind of the same stuff, but it's a different way of thinking about it, a different, kind of the opposite, actually. So these questions ask how we affect the land and how we affect the environment. This question asks how the environment affects people that are living there. So this says, how has the United States physical geography affected the people living there? Now, sometimes this question is real easy, if it's, an area that's, a desert. Well, it's pretty easy to figure out how that works. But United States, we have a whole bunch of different places, right? We have a whole bunch of different ecosystems, and they affect people differently. And I don't expect you to put all of them in there. Just give me a few. Like, how do you think that the mountainous area affects people living there? How do you think that the desert area in, Arizona and, Nevada and all that affects people living there? How does the, extreme cold and Arctic tundra ecosystem affect people living in Alaska? A couple of those, right? You don't have to put everything, just put a couple of them there. What can you tell me about United States society, right? So this one, again, is one of those ones where you're going to want to come down to ethnic groups. You're going to look at religion and culture, right? Like, you got to take all this together to explain kind of what's going on with United States society. A lot of people don't want to do that. They're just giving me like really basic answers. You need to read these and then think about the stuff and then put this answer in here, right? So before you do these assignments, you're really supposed to be reading the read doc, right? Like, that's the first thing you should be doing, is reading it and then getting an idea of what you want in your head. And then when you come to these questions, you just go back to double check. Like, it shouldn't be the first time you're reading this when you're doing the questions. But a lot of people are doing it that way. And that's why, like, questions like this that kind of require you to synthesize everything together, to take all the stuff and bring it together and give me, an idea of what you think the society is like. People are not doing it properly. So when we talk about the United States society, like, you want to talk about, a large portion of the population is religious, right? Like, look at this. It's like 80% or something like that. That is considered to be Christian. And then even after that, you still have, another 6% that's unaffiliated, and like all this, like, you only have 4% of the population that does not identify with some sort of religion. So our society as a whole, while we may not be super strict about it, like, people identify, 96% of the population identify, or well, sorry, there's a 6% here. So 90% of the population identify as some sort of religion. That we may not take it as seriously as, like, they do in Saudi Arabia, at least not all of us, but a lot of us do identify with a religion. So that's important when you're talking about society. The culture of the United States, that's important whenever you're talking about how the society is set up. The government is going to be another one that you want to look at. If you have a totalitarian government, or a monarchy, well, that's going to be important when you're talking about the society, right? So this one really should probably be like almost like a little paragraph by the time it's all said and done, in order to answer it properly. Like, it should be, 3 to 4 sentences probably. But like I said, this is a lot of stuff put together. So this is not one where you're going to go and you're going to read a section and be able to answer it right. Major religious beliefs. That one, of course, you just come up to the religion section. Major religious belief, I just told you, was Christianity at like 80%. But remember that it has this S here, beliefs. So give me more than just Christianity, right? Like, so you have unaffiliated religious, and then we have 2% is Jewish, right? So, like, in there you need to put, mostly Christian, but there are some unaffiliated religious as well, and, some other religions in smaller portions. Like, people who just put Christian here are only going to get half credit, because it's not the only religious belief in the United States. It's not even the only major religious belief. It's just the dominant religious belief. How has the United States history helped shape the geography, physical or social? So this one you have to go through and look at. Let's see here. This section down here where you're talking about settlement patterns, right? And this is another one, though, that requires you to look at multiple different things, right? So culture, like, if you're going to talk about the social aspect of it, you're going to have to read the culture section, right? But you're also going to need to read the settlement patterns section, right? So this one again is another one that requires that you read the whole read and that you have a pretty good understanding of what is being said there. If you don't, it's going to be hard to answer this properly. What are a couple interesting facts? All right, that's completely up to you. Whatever you thought was interesting, maybe it's something new that you didn't know that you learned. Couple of important things to remember, out of this, what are a couple of things that you found that were important that you think people need to know? And then current events. Like I have a lot of people leave this one blank, and I don't really understand why. The current events are right here at the bottom. Post Civil War United States, and if you read down far enough, like you'll get to new stuff. But then there's also like the timeline here. With this one, you're living in current events, right? So we know like kind of what's going on right now, right? We have a worldwide pandemic that's taking a pretty big toll on us, but you also have a contentious presidential run where you have one president refusing to concede and the other one trying to come in, and there's a lot of conflict there. So like this is all stuff that we have going on right now that you can talk about. But if you don't, if you can't think of anything, like I said, you can always come here and look at this, right? So this one is usually just down here in the timeline in this little section here. All right, so that is everything for this particular assignment. If you need help, as always, feel free to email me or come to our Google Meets on Monday and Thursday. Take it easy.